Oh, welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. I think I almost forgot my own name. How about that? A lot to get into today. We are on a brief show today because, as you know, Wednesdays, what happens on Wednesdays? Snow the Goalie Radio happens over on WBCB, and we are out at Chickies and Pete's. Tonight, we're in Glassboro, New Jersey, so if you're looking for something to do tonight, you don't want to cook, you want to go out and talk a little bit of puck tonight at 6 o'clock, you come on out to Chickies and Pete's in Glassboro, New Jersey. We'll be out there from 6 to 7 on the radio. Also be streaming on the Snow the Goalie channel over on YouTube, on Facebook, and X, and everywhere else, everywhere in between. I don't actually know what in between would actually require, so maybe we have to think about that one. But all things considered, we will be out having a lovely time at Chickies and Pete's in Glassboro tonight, so don't forget to join us there. And, of course, Snow the Goalie will also be out doing the press row show on Saturday. There's a lot going on. And there were two games last night that are obviously of high interest to Sixers and to Flyers fans. And I saw, before the show even started, Ford is already dissenting in the comments, saying, I mean, come on, Russ. The Sixers were at Chicago up 24, blew that game. Ridiculous loss, and you're not putting that on your topic list. Why did I do that? And why don't I have the Sixers on the thumbnail at all? It's not because I forgot about the game. I watched the game. I was disappointed in the game. I did tune over to the Flyers for a little bit. I know that I could do multi-screen. But there was a point last night, I was sitting on the couch, my wife went to bed early, and I went, you know what? I think I'm just going to enjoy one game at a time. Just for right now, I'm going to enjoy one game at a time. You know, I know it's crazy. I know it's psychotic to do. But I was like, I'm just going to enjoy for 1 second. Let's go Flyers. We'll go for Sixers. We'll go back to Flyers. And so I turned off the Sixers game because they were up so big, so late in the game. And I went, you know what? Even for the Sixers, that'd be a hell of a lead to blow. And then after the Flyers game wrapped up, I switched over to the Sixers, and I went, wait a second. Hold on. You ever see the video where the guy goes, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right? That's how I felt. Because when I got back over to the Sixers, I saw that they blew the lead. And then you're in like one of those final possession situations, and not ideal for the Sixers. So it was a disappointing loss. Now, part of the reason that I didn't have them on show rundown is because I'm limited on time, but also I've been wondering if people pay attention to the thumbnails and if they do read the rundowns of the episode. And so now I know, if nothing else, Ford is one of those people. He's at least one of those people. All right, let me go over it really quick. JH also proving that there was a reading of the show rundown and a looking at the thumbnail and at the title about William, about Cutter Gauthier. We're going to talk about Cutter Gauthier for a little bit on today's show as well. Let's see. Amadeo's asking if we could drop off some crab fries. No, I'm going to get crab fries. I'm going to bring some crab fries home. Every show that we've gone to so far, I've gotten like one of two main items, and I've gotten some crab fries, and most of the crab fries end up coming home with me. And then they go to my children who are waiting for me before bedtime, and they down a bunch of crab fries, and then they kind of scurry off to bed like rats on the Titanic. Did I just compare my kids to rats on the Titanic? I may have. Ford will not be in attendance tonight. Says couldn't pay me to drive to Jersey, only for the beaches. So it's funny. I looked at how long it's going to take me to get from where I live to Glassboro, and right now it would take 1:41. And I was originally going to do the show for an hour, and I was going to leave at 4 or around 4 and then get down to Glassboro and like be there in time for the 6 o'clock start. And then when I looked and it said 1:41, I went, oh, methinks that could be a problem because, of course, I have to go down in the general Philly area, which is going to be dog doo-doo. And so I'm thinking this is going to take 2 hours plus to get there. So if I look frazzled tonight on Snow the Goalie Radio, you'll know why. It's going to be a very, 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 very long drive down there. But we're going to have fun. We're going to enjoy some stuff over on the radio. Amadeo points out Sixers also have back-to-back. We'll get there as well. Let's see. Ford asks, explain to an alien that just crash landed from Mars why they're called crab fries. It's Old Bay seasoning, no crab, none. Well, that's it though. Like the whole point of Old Bay, I think, is to be crab seasoning or be some kind of seafood seasoning. I don't know. Like why else would they call them crab fries? They don't look like crab claws. Could you make a case that the shape of them is similar to like crab leg, like the skinnier crab legs? I'd say probably not still, right? Because they're like the crinkle fries. It is a good question. It is a good point. Here's the bigger question. And you guys have to let me know in the comments. So like Gordon Ramsay has this like very basic principle, right? When anybody cooks for him on Hell's Kitchen or on MasterChef, right? It's this idea that like cheese cannot be near seafood. Now, for some of you, your only fish that you might consume in a given year is getting like a McFish or whatever during Lent, right? The fillet of fish, not a McFish. It's a McChicken, right? I don't go to McDonald's. I really don't like McDonald's unless they want to sponsor this show. But you get a fillet of fish, and what does it come with? It comes with a little bit of tartar sauce, and it comes with a slice of like yellow cheese. I don't know if that's supposed to be yellow American, if it's yellow cheddar. I think it's American. I'm not positive. I don't actually know that it is American. It might be made in China. We don't know. But I'm not a big like cheese with seafood guy. The only thing I can think of is like a nice clam chowder. A New England clam chowder is a creamy base. I don't know how many people add like a cheesy element to that. I can't really think of any time that I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely want cheese on this seafood. I don't want cheese on a fillet of fish. I wouldn't want cheese on if I made my own like breaded cod or something, I wouldn't want cheese on that. So the real question is, how did they figure out that the cheese sauce, the crab fried cheese sauce, goes so well with crab seasoning, right? With the Old Bay seasoning. That is the real, because it goes together very well. But if I had crab over top of my crab fries, would I dip that crab into cheese? I probably would. Anyway, let me know. Let me know what you think. Tony Louie, I mentioned Gauthier. He says, get all your complaints out now before Anthony and Bundy shill it up later tonight on Stow the Goalie. I don't know how much shilling is going to be done, right? I know that I'm like in a very different place with this team than they are, and that's okay. I think in some ways we're actually pretty aligned with where we're at on the team. So I want to get to that in a little bit. I feel like for the most part, things are okay with the Flyers, but when you zoom out and you look around at what's happening around the league, that's where some of my concerns come into play. We'll get there in a little bit. AJ's here. Says, let's go. Caught this live. AJ, by the way, was at the Drexel Hill show with his family last week. So shout out to them for coming out to Snow the Goalie Radio last week. Again, tonight, Glassboro. Find your way there. JH says, will Snow the Goalie at least be William Free? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I don't think that there's a plan to talk about Gauthier tonight on Snow the Goalie. I set everything up because I have to. I set everything up over for the stream, and I don't remember having Gauthier on there. But it's entirely possible if somebody calls in, they could get under Ant's skin. Like if you want to piss off Anthony Sanfilippo tonight, call up the radio show at 6:00 tonight and make a case about what a disaster it was that the Flyers no longer have the NHL's leading goal scorer, Cutter Gauthier, in their system. We'll come back there again. Casual Warzone guy checks in. I don't care what anyone says. We're allowed to criticize the Lachenko pick, and I think we should be able to say it was a bad pick. Will he be a bust? Not sure, but he was the wrong pick immediately. All right, we'll get there in a little bit as well. Wyatt Rule says, happy to talk trash about Cutter here. I don't want to hear about him on So the Goalie. See, well, then this is like a little spinoff, right? This is like the beautiful thing about this show, right? It gives you another outlet. Sometimes we talk about things on here that the other two don't necessarily want to have a conversation about or might not want to get controversial about over on So the Goalie. And so we have this as well. Let's see. Yeah, so AJ says that the crinkle cut kind of looks like a crab claw. Maybe. Or like the crab's claw cut the fries. Perhaps. Fawcett with a good point says crab mac and cheese is the bomb. Lobster mac is also good. All right, so I might be able to concede there. Lobster ravioli, depending on the sauce it's served in, I think it's usually like a vodka sauce, right? You can do a little bit of parm over top. I think Parmesan actually kind of breaks the mold of being acceptable. Like, would I want crab, like a crab cake sandwich with like a slice of Cooper Sharp? No. Would I take a crab cake over pasta with some parm on top? I probably would. Maybe. Let's see. What is this? Chris Freed says the opportunity on trading Vladar has passed. Vladar was big last night. Huge in the shootout. I want to get to the game. But I see a lot of people commenting early here. I don't know how to feel about this. Like, people are really getting themselves going. Over here. Landros 2 says, sick as a dog, but I'm here to discuss. Landros, thanks for being here. Thanks for fighting through it. No, a lot of people are sick right now. A lot of kids are sick. Our youngest is homesick. I don't know, what are we doing here? Feels like no matter what, like you turn around and it's like there's another one with a cough. There's another one with a sneeze. There's a fever. There's a this. There's a that. Maybe the world is just getting less healthy. Perhaps it is that. Let's see. All right. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to start our regular stuff. What is this? JH says crab cake with Cooper Sharp. I'm saying I wouldn't do that. I would not put Cooper Sharp on a crab cake. To be clear, I am not advocating for putting Cooper Sharp onto a crab cake. Could it be good?
Maybe if we made play this one out. If we made a Cooper Sharp cheese sauce, and we did crab fries with actual like lump crab over top, and then drizzled it with some of that Cooper Sharp cheese sauce, I bet it would actually be good. But the idea of having like a fried crab cake sandwich with a slice of Cooper Sharp on top, that does sound not great. So yeah, we'll get there. All right, so let me get into a couple of the things from last night's game. And obviously, with Snow the Goalie Radio, we're going to be breaking all of this down. Last night's game was a tale of at least two different games, right? So the Flyers get things started last night against Montreal. They score a goal early. They end up with a two-man advantage. And they go from the two-man advantage. And the interesting thing was the sensational play of Trevor Zegras continues, right? He has like the spinorama backhand pass, sets up a goal, puts the Flyers up 2-0. You go, all right, two-man advantage. We love that. And then you still have some time remaining on the power play. And bingo, bango, bongo, they get another one. And so you start saying to yourself, all right, this power play is supposed to be one of the two or three things that you should be able to hang your hat on is going to be better than last season, right? So go back to the offseason. Go back to the things that we talked about on this show. I said the reason that I thought that the Flyers could end up being a playoff team was, one, the goalies couldn't be any worse than they were last year, where Ersson was in and out of the lineup a bunch. Kolosov was trying to adjust to the North American game. It wasn't playing in the AHL. Fedotov was still trying to adjust. I found no scenario where it could be any worse than that. It couldn't be. So it was like, all right, if you can get even like league average goaltending, you kind of figure, all right, that should be enough to get the Flyers a few additional points, certainly get them out of like bottom 5 territory. Then it's like, all right, what's the next most likely thing that could improve in a meaningful way, be better than last year, and ultimately help this team get the additional points that get you from like maybe being out of the top 10 of the lottery, right? And maybe getting into that bubble zone to the playoffs. And I said, well, it has to be the power play, because the Rocky Thompson horror show was so atrocious for years that like it just stood to reason things were going to like have to get better. They just had to. I could not accept a scenario where they were somehow going to get worse. So, all right, you go goaltending. Well, up until this past weekend, you'd say the goaltending had been pretty sensational. Vladar had not been roughed up, touched up at all. They have the game against the Maple Leafs. Vladar gets pulled very early in the third period. And you go, all right, maybe that's just the one, right? Like there's that old Spider-Man thing. Everybody gets one, right? Everybody gets one, right? Spider-Man, tell him. I guess everybody gets one. It was like that. So you go, all right, Vladar, let's take that one off the board. Kolosov looked good against Calgary. He also looked good in the, what are we going to call it? The relief work that he had to do against the Maple Leafs on Saturday. And so you go, all right, give it a little bit of time. Go up to Montreal. Let's see if Vladar can kind of rediscover his game. Let's make sure that Toronto didn't find the hole in his game, which appeared to be shoot high glove side. That's what Montreal got him with on Saturday. So you say, all right, let's see if when he takes the ice on Tuesday, are they going to go after him the same way? So Montreal, who got shut out in the first period, right? Gave up 3 goals in the first period. They flipped this game totally on its head in the second period. First goal, they shoot high, puck comes out. It's a simple goal. Second goal is on a power play, and it's a slapper from the left circle. And you go, all right, not ideal, but it's the man advantage. And you go, all right, is that shot necessarily on Vladar? I'm not entirely sure that it is. And you go, all right, there's like 6.5 minutes in the game. It can't possibly get any worse, right? It can't be. Like, there's no way they're going to tie this thing up. There's no way that they're going to like totally flip it. And they do. The third goal is the one that I think, if you're Vladar, you almost certainly want back, right? Because that's a puck that kind of bangs off, comes out. It's a very loose roller back out, and then it gets punched home. So that's not a great goal to give up. The fourth goal, I don't know who to exactly pin it on, but the fourth goal is one that you kind of go, you need to stop the bleeding. You need a save no matter what. You have a defenseman who kind of goes down almost like to a knee to try to block the shot. Maybe it messes with Vladar's line of sight. Not ideal, not great. So you leave the second period, and after entering the locker room with a 3-0 lead, you're now down 4-3. And that's the point where like some Flyers teams in the past would have rolled over and died. They would have just given up. That would have been the end of things. And maybe it would have just kind of had a momentumous, I don't know if that's a word, but there would have been like that the momentum would have continued coming out of the locker room for Montreal, and maybe this becomes like a 6-3 game. Flyers get one like in garbage time with an empty net. 2 minutes or so into the third period, Delorier drops the gloves. Now, not everybody loves Nick Delorier. Not everybody loves the fact that Nick Delorier has a spot on this roster. I have been pretty vocal about how I think Nikita Grebenkin needs to be in virtually every game this season. I think that there's like a very real case to be made that Nikita Grebenkin should, without question, be in the lineup because he's young enough and he's also like a really solid bottom six forward. Like when you start to think about how do you make a team a legitimate contender long-term in the NHL, how do you make a team a Stanley Cup contender? Like, yes, there is a ramp up period to get there. You don't go from like the doldrums of the basement, right, up to being a Stanley Cup contender overnight. It takes a little bit of time. There's a ramp up period. Nikita Grebenkin is only 22 years old. Right now, he looks like a dude who you could see having like a 10-year career in this league at least, playing bottom 6 minutes, bringing a ton of energy, getting into the greasy areas in front of the net, getting down and dirty along the boards, winning the puck battles that a lot of guys on this Flyers team over the last few years have just not wanted to get involved in. So to me, I go, if I'm going to make a lineup and I want to kind of have this meritocracy where you earn every minute, you're playing hard, and also I look at the long-term plan of like, we want guys to contribute to this team, be part of this culture, do things the right way. To me, Grebenkin's a guy who should be in there pretty much every night. So Delorier drops the gloves, and we know Delorier and Grebenkin have kind of been swapped one for one. You get Abels in there. There's kind of that little rotation in who's going to be on the fourth line on any given night. Grebenkin, of all people, is the one who scores the game-tying goal to force overtime, which, again, kind of comes back to my point. Like, Grebenkin does everything you want a bottom six forward to do. Even if you want to just say he's a fourth liner, you can. Dale Weiss somewhere is probably reciting the same thing that he said on that one podcast that we highlighted like a month ago, where he's like, there are guys in this league who are kind of, cast into being a bottom six forward who could honestly be like top line or second line guys. You look at Grebenkin, and I do think there's actually a little bit more upside there. I don't think that he's just your stereotypical, fourth line guy. He does have some skill to him. He's only 22. I think that there's a lot that he can grow into. But anyway, he scores to tie the game up at 4 to force overtime. Vladar has himself a decent enough overtime. Flyers get the final shot of the overtime. They don't convert. Things get interesting in the shootout because Vladar was an absolute monster in the shootout. And it's one of the things that, like, if you watched overtime last night, you kind of got the feeling that the Flyers knew that they had a chance to win in overtime, but they feel significantly better, oddly enough, about their chances of winning if a game goes to a shootout. It doesn't hurt to have the number one all-time shootout guy with at least 20 attempts in Trevor Zegras. I think he's up to almost 66% for his career in shootout attempts. So Vladar makes the first save. Zegras comes out and converts. Cole Caulfield fails to convert. And then you start going to yourself, all right, now all the pressure, in some way, all of the pressure then kind of falls back to Montreal because now you need 2 stops. Even a single stop isn't going to get it done. Mishkov goes up. It doesn't work out for him. He tries to, I think, go 5-hole on the goalie. It doesn't work out. So then Vladar, who's already made 2 saves, can ice the game with a save on the final shooter of the night. And he makes one of the most ridiculously athletic saves I can remember in a shootout in a long, long time, where he's kind of almost started to move across to his left. And then at the last second, he flashes his stick across the goal line and makes a stick save. So Vladar goes 3 for 3 on stops in the shootout, and the Flyers win. Now, it's kind of funny to think about a Flyers team wanting to play for the shootout. But again, when you have guys who can convert at as high of a rate as some of these Flyers can, like Zegras, we know is great in the shootout, like unprecedentedly great. We have a lot of trust in Matvei Mishkov's ability to finish in a shootout. Brink has been pretty good from time to time. Couturier occasionally flashes a move that you don't expect him to. They have some guys who can convert in the shootout. Now, all of a sudden, it's like a thing that you've been afraid of for a very long time. And if you've been a Flyers fan, it's like the thing that gives you the most heartburn, the idea of going overtime. Now, all of a sudden, it's almost like a strength for this team. It's very, very interesting. Let me go out here really quick. I see a whole lot of stuff over in the comments. I want to try to pick up from last night's game, and then we're going to come back. Okay. I'm trying to figure out. Okay. Let's see. We're going to. Brianna Torres says Phillies. Okay. Well, we'll get there in a second, Brianna. It's okay. Amadeo says, don't forget Couturier and Dvorak also missing 2 grade A passes from Mishkov. Mishkov is looking better. He is. I think he's looking better. It's not perfect. The thing that, like, okay, I don't want to get to the draft picks yet, and I don't want to get to the thing that actually irritated me watching the game last night, but I will in a second. Wyatt says, I find the Flyers to be actually fun and exciting this year. Looking forward to seeing the game live in Dallas next weekend. Still want more from Mishkov, but Zegras is killing it. I want to be really clear, and I mean this with every fiber of my being, okay? The Flyers front office is incredibly lucky to some extent that Trevor Zegras has played as well as he has so far this season, because Zegras looks every bit like the player they coveted for years. He looks every bit like the player that Anaheim thought they were going to have. Here's where things get a little bit haywire. If Trevor Zegras weren't performing at the level that he is right now, this team certainly wouldn't have as many points as it does. But this team would, in a lot of ways, kind of look hopeless. Like, the way that people have not pivoted off of the criticism of Matt Mishkov, but they've kind of maybe extended him a little bit of grace now. There was that initial phase after the first weekend where people were like, oh, is he fat Mishkov? Once those people kind of like cleared out, and once it started looking like Mishkov's game started heading in the right direction, it then became, all right, well, who's going to be the one to really carry the load? And Couturier had some really, really strong performances early in the season, and I would still say he looks pretty darn good. He's never going to look like the player he was before 2 back surgeries, but like, Couturier is still a very good player. You might not think that he's a 1C. You might think he's a 2C. Some of you out there are crazy enough to think that he should be the 4C. I don't know why. It's because he's not fast. I guess that could be it. Mishkov's not fast. Does he belong in the 4th line? No. Okay. But Zegras has kind of played at this level that has taken a lot of the burden off of other players. Namely, it took some of the burden off of Mishkov. It took some of the heat off of Mishkov because Zegras is performing the way that he is. It took a lot of the heat off of Lutsenko. And it might seem crazy to say that because there have been games where Zegras has played as a wing. He's played this hybrid role. It took a lot off of the Lutsenko of it all because you're looking at it saying there's still a viable path maybe to Zegras being a top 2C on this team. And if that's the case, all right, maybe the need to have Jet Lutsenko show up right away and perform right away, maybe that kind of dies down. And now that Jet's back at in Guelph or back with Guelph, maybe that kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off there. Here's where it really takes a lot of the pressure off. If Zegras weren't performing, and if Jamie Drysdale hadn't taken the kind of strides that he has so far this season, where he is a much better defensive player than he's ever been, the fact that Cutter Gauthier leads the league in goals is the kind of thing that would have people with pitchforks and flames down at the Xfinity Mobile Arena. Now, make no mistake about it, there are a lot of people who are still very upset watching the kind of success that Cutter Gauthier is having with Anaheim. There are still a lot of people who are of the very firm belief that this was an avoidable situation, that the Flyers screwed up at some point along the way, and that Gauthier should be here. And Jamie Drysdale, for as good as he's been, could you envision a scenario where it might have been better to have Cutter Gauthier and Zeev Buyam instead of having Jamie Drysdale and Jet Lutsenko? Like, yes. And in theory, both of those things were in your control in some way. The question is the same question it's always been. What really happened with Cutter Gauthier that led to him not wanting to play here? I'm pretty firmly in the camp that there were multiple things that led to Gauthier not wanting to be here. I think that probably the number one cause of Gauthier not wanting to be here is that when he was drafted by Chuck Fletcher, who was in it to win every possible game that he could, I would not be surprised if Chuck Fletcher told Cutter Gauthier's camp, we think that he could play in the league next year, or at the very least, like, we'll have him up at the end of the season. I don't care if there's 1 game left on his deal, if there's 2 games left on his deal, like, we will bring him up. And when the decision was made to change the front office, Danny Briere, who was an assistant GM and got installed as the GM, perhaps it was Danny, perhaps it was Jonesy, perhaps it was both, perhaps it was Torts, maybe it was all of the above. Me thinks that there's a chance, a better than zero chance, that the conversation was had with his camp, and it was, hey, if you're going to be on this team, you have to earn it. Who does that sound like? Maybe that sounds a little bit more like Tortorella. You go back to the night of the trade and the thought that like maybe Kevin Hayes didn't enjoy his time in Philadelphia. Maybe he didn't enjoy having the A ripped off his sweater, and the fact that he was the main point of contact per the organization at the time. He was the main point of contact with Cutter Gauthier. Perhaps he said a couple of things about like, it's kind of a shit show in Philly. It might not be great. I don't know if you like playing for Torts. All of those things could have happened. And Gauthier maybe looks at it and says, hey, if they didn't want me to start the season with the team, and if they aren't assuring me that I'm going to have a spot on the roster, well, then I'm not going to show up to camp. And if they're not going to assure me that at the very least, they will play me at the end of the year on a team that probably isn't going to be playoff bound, well, then what's the point? I could go somewhere else and play sooner. And he was right. I mean, Anaheim, they made the move. And then it was like 1 or 2 games, right, left in that season. He came up. They burned a year of his ELC and he played. And now here he is leading the league in goals. Does this mean that Cutter Gauthier is going to be the number 1 scorer in the National Hockey League for the next 10 years? No. Does it mean that Cutter Gauthier is going to finish top 3 or top 5 in goal scoring this year? Not necessarily. Lest I remind you, there was about a week ago, people were losing their shit about Owen Tippett scoring a bunch of goals in a short period of time. Oh, see, that proves that all the Owen Tippett doubters were wrong. No, it doesn't. It's a small sample size. If Gauthier were to continue this, though, and he finishes somewhere in like the top 10, top 8 in goal scorers in the entire NHL, well, Jamie Drysdale better have a damn good defensive season. And Trevor Zegras had better damn well continue producing the way that he is. And Matvei Michkov had damn well better be the guy that we all hope he is, to take a little bit of that heat off. That's kind of the truth of it all, right? Flyers fans are always going to be upset. They're always going to be upset about what happened with Gauthier. I get it. I don't think that they're totally wrong. Would I like to watch a team that has yet another sniper on this team? Yes, I would. That would be swell. But for whatever reason, circumstances changed, and he's not here. I think a lot of people are going to drive themselves crazy if every time Cutter Gauthier scores a goal, they start putting out a screenshot of where he is in the standings in terms of like goal scorers this season. I think it's going to drive a lot of people to the point of madness where like, just back off the ledge. There's nothing you can do. It is done. The multiverse, if it exists, we are in this timeline, and he ain't coming back. The Lutsenko and the Buyum of it all, though, that's the one where I go, that was very easily like in your control. We can have that conversation another day. Let me see. Casual Warzone guy says, everyone with a brain knew that the Cutter trade was bad the moment they made it. Here's the issue, and this is like kind of my contention, right? The night that the trade was made, the thought process was, if it had gotten out that Gauthier didn't want to play here, the Flyers were going to lose negotiating leverage. There is a school of thought where that could be true. There's also a school of thought that, like, if there were other GMs that were high on Gauthier's goal scoring potential, it might not have been the worst thing in the world to canvass the league and to get more offers in and get competing offers. Now, it could have gone bust, right? Like, it's entirely possible that if that word had gotten out, you'd have gotten less than you ended up getting. It's entirely possible. I mean, you got this from Chris. Says you can't keep a player that didn't show up to a front office meeting and in a second attempt by Leclerc and Sharp on the team. I think at that point, obviously, the relationship had soured so poorly that like there was no salvaging it. Jim Grasso, though, with a little bit of positivity, because we love positivity on the show, says Flyers won that trade with Toronto. They did. I mean, Lawton's hurt. Grebenkin looks really good. I think that they're in pretty good shape. I think all things considered, you got a little bit of draft capital, allows you to make moves. I think it's fine. Robert Holston says, I feel like Michkov isn't going to be as good as I thought he was going to be. Even if Zegras is fun to watch, I still want the Flyers franchise to fold. Just don't see the point. Good God. All right. That's pretty negative. I'll tell you, the guy that I was upset watching was Demidov, who I think I heard them say on the telecast, Demidov, because like Fedotov, not Fedotov, Fedotov. Demidov. I'm going to call him Demidov. Anyway, Demidov's the guy that I wanted. Like, the whole Lutsenko and Buyum thing doesn't matter if the Flyers don't go on a fake playoff run. If they don't go on this like fake attempt to make the playoffs, they probably end up in the lottery in a spot where maybe they're picking around where Montreal got Demidov. And that player to me is truly exciting. And he's previously played with Michkov, and he spoke glowingly about Michkov. And to me, I was like, that'd be the guy. And I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? Let's see. I got to fly through this because I've got to get out of here. Greg Bondarenko says, afternoon all. Glad to finally catch a Russ Joy Show. Greg, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Let me go out here. A lot of stuff about Gauthier. All right. Let's see. I think that's it that I wanted to get to over there. All right, I'm gonna do that. Now, last thing I wanted to get to is not the Sixers game. Okay, Ford can be upset. He can be upset about the lack of Sixers today. I'm so disgusted by what happened in the Sixers game, and I told myself I'm not going to get angry today. I don't want to be the angry guy. I had a guy DM me today that he was in the car with his daughter a few weeks ago, and they were listening to my show, and it was the time that I was mad at Dave Dombrowski. And so she told her dad today, I guess they're getting ready to go on a road trip, and she's like, I guess at some point we'll listen to that podcast with the angry guy. I don't want to be the angry guy. My last name is Joy. Come on now. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be angry about the Sixers. I'm going to show the Sixers a wee bit of grace. Now, was last night's game pathetic? Yes, it was. Was it pathetic to blow that lead? Yes, it was. I told you guys on Monday, Chicago is a better team than people thought they were going to be going into the year. I'm not totally convinced that Chicago is a great team. I don't think Chicago is going to finish in the top 4 in a depleted Eastern Conference. The game that I have been the most intrigued by and the most interested in is the one that happens tonight. Flyers are in Cleveland taking on the Cavs, who were the best team, in theory, in the East last year. And so, at least in the regular season, I want to see how the Sixers stack up against that team. I also imagine that Joel Embiid will not be playing tonight, which in a weird way is probably advantageous to this backcourt, right? You're going to be able to play very, very fast and probably go up and down the court. It's going to be a high-scoring game with the Cavs. I fully expect tonight's game to go like 125, 118 or something like that. It should be a pretty wide-open game. That's my expectation, at least. What I want to see is, how does VJ Edgecombe match up against, Donovan Mitchell? That's what I want to see. I expect that Maxi's going to get most of the time there. If Lonzo Ball gets put in to effectively defend VJ Edgecombe, I want to see how he handles the pressure. So, I'm interested in the backcourt battle tonight between the Sixers and the Cavs. Now, last thing I want to get to, really quick. Harrison Bader declined his option. I saw people on Twitter beside themselves.
Oh, Harrison Bader said that he really liked his time as a Philadelphia Philly. Does this mean Harrison Bader actually didn't like us the whole time? Does Harrison Bader actually hate Philadelphia? Did he not like the Phillies? Is that why he wore purple? Should he have been wearing fanatic-themed elbow pads like Bryce Harper? Is that the sign that this was all over and that he was...
No. Harrison Bader is going to get paid. It was a $10 million option. You would turn down the $10 million option, especially if you played as well as Harrison Bader did for the Phillies after he got acquired ahead of the trade deadline. You 100% would turn down the $10 million option. He's going to get probably a 3 or 4 year deal. I would assume that the salary is going to be like $15 million plus a year. Keep in mind that if you're the Phillies or if you're another team who watched how important Bader was for the Phillies, remember batting leadoff when Trey Turner got hurt, and then you watch the series against the Dodgers, things fundamentally changed once Bader went out. And then you're talking about all right, you're losing your best defensive outfielder and you're losing a guy who had some clutch hits down the stretch in the regular season. If you're evaluating that player, you go, maybe he's a lot better than we thought. Or at the very least, maybe he's still a very, very good player, not an elite one by any stretch, but one that will make a lot of outfields better. And if that's the case, then he's going to make a lot more than $10 million. So I don't blame him for turning it down. The real question is what the Phillies are going to do with Bader. Because now that he's opted out and he's going to become a free agent, you have to assume that the Phillies front office and Bader's agent have had a conversation about what that number will look like, what the contract length will look like. The Phillies probably know in their heart of hearts whether or not he is likely to walk or if there's a good chance he comes back. I imagine the Phillies don't want to bid against themselves, so they'll let him go out and talk to other teams. I mean, they don't have to let him, right? He's an unrestricted free agent. But there's probably an understanding between the team and the players' camp that, we have this offer. And if a team comes back and a team goes above that offer, give us a second, give us a chance to match or beat it. maybe the Phillies are going to find out really quickly that the number that Bader can fetch on the open market is significantly higher than they want to give. And then maybe that moves the Crawford timeline up. And maybe they just say, all right, that's going to be the replacement. I don't know. I think Bader's going to get paid. I think he's going to get paid well. Here's the problem. Bader's a good player. He was important to this Phillies team, but I don't think he's so critical to the Phillies team that you overpay for him. There are a lot of other holes on this team. There are a lot of other positions that you need to address on this team. I'm not convinced that a big old massive free agent contract just to keep Harrison Bader around is worth it. Seems like a really good dude. Seemed like a good clubhouse dude. Seemed like a guy that you would want to have on your team. There does have to come a point where you set a limit on the contract, unless you're the Dodgers. Unless you're the Dodgers, because there's that rumor out there that Kyle Tucker might want to go play in LA. And I'm sure that if there's like a generational Japanese prospect or two looking to move to the US, they'll probably go to the Dodgers too. Because why wouldn't you? And with no salary cap in place and with no commissioner to kind of stand in the way of, deferred payments, going to be kind of hard to compete with the Dodgers, who are back-to-back champs. Maybe it'll just take a three-peat by the Dodgers and a lockout in 2027 to like fix baseball. I don't know. We'll find out. You guys can let me know, though, in the comments section what you think of whether or not the Phillies should extend a big offer to Harrison Bader. Do you let him walk? What do the terms look like? You can let that go in the live chat right now, or if you're watching after the fact, you can put it in the regular comments section over on the video on YouTube. I have to go because, as I mentioned earlier, tonight we are down in Glassboro, New Jersey, for Snow the Goalie Radio. We will be on the radio on WBCB, and we will be streaming on the Snow the Goalie channels on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Here is a reminder of our schedule this week for Snow the Goalie Radio tonight in Glassboro, New Jersey at Chickies and Pete's. Saturday, 12:30 start, Flyers versus Senators. So do us a favor. If you're going to be down at the Flyers game, remember section 121 through the glass doors, take the elevator up to the balcony, come say hey. If you're in or around Glassboro tonight, you want to come out and talk some puck, we will be there for Snow the Goalie Radio tonight. All right. That was a lot in a very short time. Thanks for being here. Until Friday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. And it's also the name of the show. Talk to each and every one of you very, very soon. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Ring the bell to get notified whenever the show goes live. Like videos that you see on TikTok, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, YouTube Shorts. And if you like the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Talk to all of you Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye now.